It's known that we have been caught unprepared during the second wave. What measures should be put in place for the third wave? Children, as we are hearing, are especially vulnerable as there are no vaccines for them, and they can't be left alone in the hospitals. So, what protocols should be put in place?
So, one, let's talk about children first, because children are not specially vulnerable to SARS-CoV-2. In fact,
Mhm.
children have been infected in the first and the second waves and will be infected in the third, fourth, fifth waves as well. This
Mhm.
assumption that children will be worse affected is an assumption. We don't know that it is likely to occur. And the framing really is we will give vaccines to everybody who is above 18, and therefore children will be left unprotected. Now, when you look at disease in children, children are infected at high rates, but they develop disease at very low rates. And that is not going to change. It doesn't matter whether we have variants or not, because there is no infectious agent that is going to specifically infect everybody under 18 and not infect those above 18. So I think we need to understand that there is no special risk for children that is being created. The other question about not having vaccines for those under 18. Well, who do you need vaccines for? And in a time of short supply, who do you not give vaccines to? And who do you give them to? It's very clear that age and comorbidities are what determine severe disease and death. So, if you need to protect our population to lower the number of deaths and lower the number of hospitalizations, we should be focusing our efforts on making sure that the elderly and those with comorbidities have very high rates of coverage. Where we are at the moment, we have not achieved that, and we really need to continue to emphasize that. As vaccines become more and more available, we can think about immunizing younger groups. But to me, the question then comes up is, would you want to give vaccines to a 16-year-old who has very little chance of being infected and getting severe disease from that infection versus a healthcare worker in sub-Saharan Africa? Is this a global problem? Is this an Indian problem? Now, Canada and the US have started to immunize their children. They are immunizing above 12 years of age. And globally, there is a discussion around whether healthy children without comorbidities need vaccines at all at this time. It's not clear that children do need vaccines, but it's not like the vaccines we have will not induce an immune response in children. They will. But whether children should get these vaccines now remains an open question.
You're also on various state task forces. How are the differences in approaches, and what are the best ideas to stop the virus from spreading?
I think one of the things that is important for all of us to learn is that we are all learning. We haven't had this virus with us for a very long time, and we've had the vaccines for an even shorter time. So, what is the best use of vaccines? How do you use vaccines to prevent disease as well as protect livelihoods? What are the approaches that are available, and how do you decide to allocate vaccine doses at a time when the doses themselves are limited? So every state has a slightly different approach. The principles are similar, but in terms of distribution, there may be some differences in which group is prioritized at what time. So do you prioritize, for example, everyone's prioritizing healthcare workers, but do you prioritize, for example, the state transport authority people? Or do you prioritize people who are working on the electrical grid? All of these decisions vary by state. But I think it's time for us to think about experimenting a little bit. When you have limited supply, then to figure out what the best strategy could be can vary quite a lot. Should we be thinking about, as many people have suggested, saturating an area or saturating a kind of occupation? What would that mean in terms of transmission of disease and of protection of that particular profession? So let's say we said, why don't we vaccinate all the Swiggy and Zomato delivery systems, right? What would the consequences of such an approach be? These are the kinds of things we need to think about. We need to engage with infectious disease modelers, and then we need to test out these hypotheses and say, okay, if you're looking for a solution that needs to focus on this area, then here's an approach that works for you. But till we try these out in real life, we are not going to have answers or recommendations.
How soon and what percentage of the population should be inoculated to save ourselves from the third wave?
As many as possible. So earlier we said that herd immunity would kick in at about 60% of the population being vaccinated. Now we are dealing with variants that are 50, 70% more transmissible than the variants we had at the time that we said 60%. So anytime you have a virus that becomes more able to spread, then the percentage of the population that needs to be covered goes up in order to stop transmission, right? So reaching herd protection requires more people to be either infected or vaccinated. So we think that with this, it might need to be somewhere in the order of 80%. Now, it doesn't mean like 80% is an off switch. Suddenly the virus will stop circulating. I think we will begin to see a slowing in the circulation of the virus at much lower levels of coverage. Once we start to get to 40, 50, 60%, we will start to see a decline in cases that will be a sustained decline. And if we can get up to 80% coverage, we'll be in really good shape.
Is it prudent policy decision to increase the gap between the two doses?
In India, the gap being extended 12 to 16 weeks is based on the real life data that came out of the UK and the clinical trial data, which was available even in December and January, that showed us that if you extend the gap between two doses, you actually get much better protection from the vaccine. And the other thing that we are discussing in immunological terms is that what is the long-term protection from these vaccines? Right now, everything that we are measuring is short-term protection. But will this vaccine last 6 months or 1 year or 2 years or 3 years? And what's the ideal dosing to be able to get that level of protection? Immunologically, it makes more sense to separate the two doses in order to have better long-term protection.
Okay.
So that's the basis on which the decision to keep the 12 to 16 week, to make the 12 to 16 week recommendation. And I would advise the Indian government to keep it.